Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for EMBCA's 80th anniversary of the end of the Nazi German occupation in Hellas and its legacy webinar panel discussion. My name is Luke Katsos, EMBCA's president, and I will be moderating today's panel. Our distinguished panel includes author-poet, Professor Nicholas Alexiou, Professor of Sociology and Director of the Hellenic American Project at Queen's College, John Yiannis Pavlopoulos, Sea Guardian President and Vice Admiral retired, Honorary Commander-in-Chief of the Hellenic Fleet and former military representative to the NATO and the EU. Entrepreneur, writer, independent political analyst, Yiannis Mavros. Attorney, accredited mediator, Christina Stamouli. And educator, community leader, Peter Stavrianidis. The Nazi German occupation of Hellas during World War II from April 1941 to October 1944 was a period marked by severe hardship, resistance, and profound legacy. The occupation began with a rapid military campaign that overwhelmed Hellenic and Allied forces, resulting in the division of the nation into three zones controlled by Germany, Italy, and Bulgaria. The German-occupied zone included key areas such as Athens, Thessaloniki, Crete, and later other areas. This occupation led to widespread and severe suffering of the Hellenic population. The Nazis imposed harsh policies that caused economic collapse and a severe famine during the winter of 1941-1942, resulting in the death of over 300,000 Hellenes. The occupying forces also engaged in systematic plunder of Hellenic resources, exacerbating the economic devastation. During the Nazi occupation, the Hellenic Jewish population faced devastating persecution and genocide. The Nazis deported over 60,000 Hellenic Jews, primarily from Thessaloniki, to concentration camps such as Auschwitz. This operation, beginning in 1943, led to the near total annihilation of the Hellenic Jewish community, with approximately 83,000 or 83% of the Hellenic Jews perishing in the Holocaust, and a few survived during hiding and or resistance efforts. As in days of old, Hellenic resistance against the occupiers began almost immediately, with various groups forming to oppose the Axis powers. The most prominent resistant organizations were the National Liberation Front, EAM, and its military wing, the Hellenic People's Liberation Army, Hellas, which were primarily controlled by the Communist Party of Greece. These groups conducted guerrilla warfare, sabotage, and facilitated Allied operations in the region. The resistance movement was a critical factor in undermining German control and maintaining Hellenic morale. The German occupation was characterized by brutal reprisals against resistance activities. Entire villages were destroyed and their inhabitants massacred in retaliation for guerrilla attacks. One of the most notorious incidents was the massacre at the village of Distomo, where 214 civilians were killed in June of 1944. These atrocities left deep scars in the Hellenic collective memory. Also, some Hellenes collaborated with the occupiers, causing further destruction for various reasons, including political, economic, or survival motives. These collaborators included officials, businessmen, and members of security battalions who helped enforce German policies and maintain order. They often betrayed resistance fighters and fellow citizens, facilitating arrests, deportations, and executions. This collaboration was driven by opportunism, ideological alignment with fascism, or coercion. The actions of these collaborators exacerbated the suffering of the Hellenic population and contributed to the occupation's brutality, leaving a complex and controversial legacy right to this day. The legacy of the Nazi occupation of Hellas is multifaceted. Firstly, it left an enduring impact on the Hellenic economy and infrastructure, which we mentioned lasted for many decades. The destruction of towns, villages, and transportation networks disrupted economic activity and delayed post-war recovery. And moreover, the famine and atrocities inflicted long-lasting psychological trauma to the Hellenic population, as did, as we mentioned, the extermination of Hellenic Jews that were an ancient community within the Hellenic Republic. Politically, the occupation and subsequent liberation led to significant internal strife. The power vacuum left by the departing Germans and the competing visions for Greece's future among different resistance factions led to the Hellenic Civil War from 1946 to 1949. This conflict between the communist-led forces and the government troops, backed by the British and later the Americans, was a direct outgrowth of the divisions and power struggles that had developed during the Nazi occupation. Culturally, the occupation and the resistance became central themes in Hellenic literature, film, and our collective memory. In international relations, the occupation period highlighted Hellas's strategic importance in the Eastern Mediterranean, influencing its post-war alliances and its role in the Cold War. Hellas's experience during the occupation also fostered a strong sense of national identity and resistance against foreign domination. Now I'd like to start introducing our panelists today so they can give us some brief presentations before we start our group panel discussion. Our first presenter will be Professor Nikos Alexiou, who was born in Volos, Greece, where he studied economics. He has taught in the Department of Sociology at Queen's College since 1990 and has received the President's Award for Excellence in Teaching. His fields of interest are social and political sociology, ethnic studies, and research. He has established the first archive, library, museum for the Greeks of New York, and he is the Director of Research of the Hellenic American Project at Queen's College. Also a contemporary poet, Nikos is the author of 6 books of poetry, and many of his poems have been published in Hellenic and American journals and anthologies. He is a member of the Greek Authors Association and the president of the Greek American Writers Guild Association, and he's also a director at EMBCA. Welcome, Nikos, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome to our, very important panelists. Thank you very much for being here today with us. As you said, Lou, a tremendous event. I don't know if Konstantinos is ready for the PowerPoint. Yes. So definitely we start with this understanding, go on, that in general, not only the resistance and the occupation is significant, the whole decade, it was one of the most critical decades for Greece, and it represents a pivotal and tumultuous point. And we need more historical examination, and that's why I think this panel discussion today is extremely important, because it's going to contribute to a better understanding. I believe that this era encompasses critical events, including the German occupation, of course, the resistance movements, and the civil war that followed. Definitely, these events had a profound effect and shaped modern Greek society and politics. For a long time, it remained unexplored and inadequately documented. Only in the recent years, we have a systematic scientific research, and this is a good sign how we can, as a society and scientists, can understand our past. Let's start with the next PowerPoint, Konstantine. Trying to understand the complexity of this period and the challenges that we have for researchers. Research can be in different levels and in different disciplines. besides sociology, that I prefer and I like very much, political science, and definitely cultural studies. It is a highly charged topic, the 1940s, the Civil War, the resistance, the occupation, and it involves also personal experiences, political ideologies that influence historical analysis. As we're going to see in the next one, we can categorize it in different periods, and we see the relationship between the dominant ideologies in the country and also the dominant practices in research. So the Greek historiography in the 40s has undergone significant transformations over time. Definitely that reflects the change in political climate, the social attitudes, and access to new sources. The first period is the initial post-war period after the war and after the Civil War, where we see a focus on the heroic resistance against the Axis occupation, against the Nazi Germans. We see a marginalization or outright omission of the role of the left-wing resistance groups, EAM and others, and of course, the portrayal of communists as traitors and threats to national security. As we continue, we have the revisionist era between 1970s and 80s, with the fall of the military junta in 1974 and the subsequent democratization process led to a significant shift in historical perspectives. Increased recognition of the left-wing resistance, all the movements, and particularly YAM and LAS. Don't forget that the resistance was recognized officially by the state after 1981, after the emergence of PASOK in power, in government. We also have studies that criticize the British and American involvement in Greece. Always the foreign factor is the main issue for Greece. And eventually we have the emergence of social history approaches focusing on everyday experiences during occupation and the Civil War. Hunger, other terrible things become, through oral histories in different places, very evident and very important contributions. As you're going to see in the next part, since the 90s until present, of course, the end of the Cold War and access to new archival sources prompted further evaluation. We have more understanding of the complexities of collaboration and resistance, exploration of previous taboo subjects, because the whole period of the Civil War and the resistance was a taboo subject for many, many years for Greece. So we have new treatment of minorities and, of course, the Jewish Holocaust in Greece, as Lou mentioned. Increased focus on local and regional histories, moving beyond Athens and the center of the metropolis in different areas, narratives on different areas. I am from Volos, Thessaly, and I know that in the university in Thessaly, they have an extensive narrative about the Second World War and the resistance. So we saw, as we go on, Konstantinos, the various approaches in conclusion to the present now that we have recent historiography that characterized by integration of Greek experiences to broader European and global context, emphasis on interdisciplinary approaches incorporating anthropology, sociology, and cultural studies, and a growing interest in memory studies and the ways in which the 1940s continue to shape Greek identity politics. Between me and Lou, we had an attempt previous years, and we also talk about the Greek American brigade that participated, the 122, and it's a new evidence as we see how to integrate Greek experiences in broader European and American experiences. The ongoing debates that we have so far that are very, very important, despite the evolution we have. First is the extent of collaboration with Axis forces. A recent book by Menelaos Haralambidis, a fantastic book, η Sociology, ένοπλη πολιτική και οικονομική συνεργασία, and an older book by Nikos Karkanis about the trials that basically led nowhere because most of the accused collaborators, either they are acquitted or they managed to escape. And not only that, with the Marshall Plan and all this, they dominated the economic scene besides politics. Definitely the role of external powers is shaping the post-war Greece and the legacy of the Civil War and its impact on contemporary Greek society. Those are, as I understand, the ongoing debates throughout the bibliography since the 1940s. As we continue, in paraphrasing Shakespeare and what is the name, what is in a date, to give you an example, we have 3 dates: October 12th, October 28th, and May 8th. October 12th, of course, 1944 is the liberation of Athens. October 28th, 1940 is the beginning of the war for Greece and the Epos. And May 8th is the V-Day, is a victory in Europe. Greece celebrates mostly October 28th. We don't celebrate October 12th as the liberation of Athens. The first one and only one for many years was in 1944. The joy and the euphoria and the hope that it was crushed 2 months later with the December events, of course. And we don't celebrate 1945 with the rest of Europeans, but the dominant narrative or the politics was to concentrate our attention to the Ohi Day, and for a good reason, I guess, because I remember Manoli Iglesias saying, basically because Greeks resisted. So if we continue, we'll see some of the debates around that. So although Greece stands among the European nations for its unique commemoration of World War II events, we don't have many, as far as concerned monuments. We don't have many monuments celebrating or commemorating the resistance. Only recently we have some of those events. Unlike, as I said, other countries that celebrate the end of the war, which is in May, we celebrate mostly October 28th, the Ohi Day. Let's see at least 2 key factors. There are more, but let's focus on 2 for now, since we don't have much time and space. So definitely it is the initial military success. It is the only defeat of the Axis invasion, the Italians and the Germans, and therefore the Germans that came later, of course, heavily unparalleled, different size of weapons, army, etc. But definitely, it was the first defeat of the Nazis and the Italians. If you see the next one, the second part of the question is more complex because it's another Greek peculiarity among the so many that we have. So we don't celebrate the liberation of Athens because it is associated with the Civil War and the December events. The British policy was not to recognize the contribution of the contribution of the largest social and political movement before the war and after the war. We don't have in the history of Greece another so massive, movement like So to disassociate with them was to focus on 28th and not the 12th. Coming to conclusions, in the next one we'll see that basically one of the reasons for that it was that the collaborators of the right wing and the palace formed the ruling classes. They brought the old regime back, the old elites, and that was in contradiction with the new hope, the new classes, and the new social organization. Remember that Greece had a lot of refugees from Asia Minor and other parts, and it was a great hope for a new Greece, not to reestablish the status quo of the old elites. Definitely, because the German collaborators continue to be in power and to control a lot of the apparatus, the civil apparatus. They became the civil servants or in different other forces. So overall, this ongoing evolution in Greek historiography and bibliography reflects not only the change in academic trends, but also the enduring significance of the forest in Greek collective memory and national identity. And I believe as new sources become more available, the fresh perspectives emerge, our understanding of this crucial decade continues to deepen and evolve. I hope later we'll have more chances to expand on some of our issues. Thank you very much for your attention and time.
Thank you, Nico. As our audience knows, and you certainly do, Nico, we've had a few events on a yearly basis actually relating to Ochi Day, and its importance not only for stopping obviously the fascist forces, Italian forces, let's say, but also its effects on changing the perspective and the dynamics of World War II, in particular as it relates to the Germans heading towards Russia, having to divert to going to Greece, which to a certain degree affected the total outcome of the war.
The delay in Crete, the delay.
And besides that, obviously, it was the first time. It was the first time that the forces had been stopped, even though other nations fell in days. It took months, literally, to take over the Elas, and that in itself is very important. I think what you discuss, and this could be a prelude to that, even though it's a hot button issue that nobody wants to talk about, I think this will lead also to a discussion on the Civil War, because I think it's a discussion that we have to have, even though it's perhaps a dangerous one in certain circles. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to have to talk about it as we go forward.
Yes, we have to dedicate a whole.
We will. We'll probably do more than one. Our next presenter, and thank you for being with us, is Yiannis Pavlopoulos. He's the president of Sea Guardian, and he was also the vice admiral who retired, who served for 44 years in the Hellenic Navy, becoming the commander-in-chief of the Hellenic fleet, and later appointed as the military representative of Greece to NATO and the EU military committees in Brussels until January 2023. A seafarer, warfare, amphibious officer with a Navy Special Forces background, he commanded 2 warships and exerted his duties as commander of the Navy Special Forces, the Athens Multinational Sea Lift Coordination Center, and the NATO Maritime Interdiction Operational Training Center. As an SOF team leader, he provided VIP protection in the maritime and land domain. A part of his national service, he participated in several international, multinational operations in Iraq, in NATO, with regards to former Yugoslavia, and with the UN in Iraq. Among other duties, he served as the head of strategy and policy at the Hellenic National Defense General Staff, and for 3 years as naval attaché in Paris. He has earned his master's degree in the Strategic Studies and Naval Science at the Hellenic Naval Wars College. He has been decorated by the United States, Greece, France, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait, as well as the United Nations. Welcome, Vice Admiral for being with us today, and thank you for sharing your thoughts on this day.
Thank you, Lou. Lady, gentlemen, many thanks for involving me in this very interesting and prestigious panel. I'm not a historian, but I'm attached in history. I'm not a politician, but I am attached completely in politics. And I owe my naval career to a guy that every evening during dinner time, he was sharing with his two sons stories from Athens, occupied Athens, from the Germans, and during the liberation era and the Civil War, of course. And this was my father. So I grew up with the stories of my father, who passed away a year ago. And I had the chance to listen firsthand to stories that he was sharing with us. And due to this reason, he cultivates in my heart the love for the country and for democracy and the nation state as the cornerstone of the global the global balance of power. So with that, I'd like to say that I will speak from a geopolitical and a geostrategic perception, saying that the heart of Greece is Crete, the island of Crete. And it was obvious that after occupying Athens, the Germans were going to attack to Crete in order to control the East Mediterranean Sea from that island. Today, we can see what is the political situation in the Middle East, what is actually happening. And Crete and Cyprus are the two main islands that they control the whole East Mediterranean Sea, and they have an influence, direct influence in the in the Middle East. So I will be brief. I will share with you some stories. First of all, in 1944, my father was 12 years old. And when after the withdrawal of the Germans, he was telling me that along with other young boys at the age of 12 years, they were leading the British tanks that they were approaching Athens from Piraeus. And it was, let's say, the scouts in front of the British forces that they were trying to reach Syntagma and let's say control the center of Athens to provide security to the Greek government that under George Papandreou leadership was about to take the power in Greece. Another story that I could say that I could share with you was that my family was hiding in their house in Botanikos, in the center of Athens at that time. They were hiding a British soldier that was left behind, after the withdrawal of the Greek forces and the British forces to Crete. So an evening, my grandma went to a nearby taverna, and she entered the taverna and she dared to speak in English, saying, "Good afternoon, everybody." And there was a German officer who was having his lunch in the taverna. And all of a sudden, he woke up and she asked her, "Why do you speak English?" And these were the English that my grandma was learning from the British soldier in our house in Athens. So she was terrified. Okay, the situation was solved by the other people that they were in the taverna, and the family was saved, because imagine if the Germans were learning about a British soldier being hidden in our house in Athens. So quite often I was saying to my colleagues in the NATO and the EU military committees, when they were getting my nerves broken from the hypocrisy they were approaching international affairs, I was telling them, guys, you have to respect Greece, and you don't have to wave your finger to my country, because my country had a 10 years war from 1940 till 1950, and Greece fought the three authoritarian ideologies at that time: fascism, Nazism, and communism. So I was telling them that when I'm staring you, I'm looking in your eyes, I can see many of you being from our side at that time, and the majority of them that today they are in NATO and the EU, they were from the other side, and they were fighting Greece, while Greece was from the side of the Allies during the First World War and the Second World War. So we have to consider that Greece suffered for 10 years, a 10 years war, and this has to be respected by the international community. What I'd like to say is that the geostrategical position of Greece is unique. We are, in a way, we are playing a very critical role controlling the straits, the Dardanelles Straits, and the continuation of them, which is the Aegean Sea, till down to the Crete Islands. And this was the value for the Germans, that they invaded Greece. This was the reason that they invaded Greece, in order to control the Middle East and the oil fields in the Middle East. So that was all from my side. I don't have anything else to say. I shared my experience with you, and I will be ready for your questions during the discussion. Lou, thank you very much for including me in your panel.
Vice Admiral, thank you so much for those personal recollections of your father and your grandmother. I thought that was pretty interesting. Thank you again for being with us today. Our next presenter is Yiannis Mavros. He is an entrepreneur and writer, an economist educationally from Columbia, UC Berkeley, and New School for Social Research, as well as an independent political activist. He is a member of the National Council for Claiming Germany's Debts to the Hellenic Republic. He is the son also of George Mavros, statesman and leader of the Center Union. Welcome, and thank you for being with us today, Yiannis.
Thank you, Lou. It was very enlightening to hear the previous speakers, and I think a very good introduction to what I have to contribute to today's discussion, which concerns the claims that Greece has Germany because of the war and the occupation. There are four types of claims. Three are financial claims, damages and compensations to the families of the victims of over 100 Holocausts, which have been officially recognized, but over 1,000 towns and villages have had massacres and extreme violence committed during the occupation. The second type of claim that Greece has is to the state, the reparations that are due to the Greek state, which were recognized at the Paris Peace Conference, which took place in 1947. The third type of claim is it's the forced loan, so-called, which was recognized by the Germans, which was made party to the forced loan at a second stage in 1943, and this consists of funds which were siphoned from the Greek state, and these were funds that were over and above the recognized claims that Germany had to fund the occupation forces. And the final claim that Greece has is not pecuniary. It's not consists of financial items, but it concerns the looting of cultural treasures. Over 8,000 of these have been documented way back just after the liberation, actually. So it's a scandal that none of these have been recognized and have been satisfied by the German side. In 1953, there was an agreement in London, which took place there just after the creation of NATO, whereby the victors accepted to defer any kind of claim against Germany up until Germany would be reunited. This, as everyone knows, actually took place in 1990, and Germany exacted a 5-year moratorium in order to rebuild the country to fund East Germany. And in 1995, Greece made a move, a diplomatic move, an important diplomatic move, namely Note Verbal, which established officially Greece's claims. The answer by Germany was negative. Note Verbal was rejected. And ever since, we are facing a refusal by Germany to acknowledge and to admit and accept its debt to Greece. So in 1995, when the Note Verbal was rejected, two things happened. On the one hand, the National Council for the claiming of the debt of Germany's debt to Greece was formed by eminent veterans of the war, headed by Manolis Glezos and other veterans across the board, not just EAM Elas, but all resistance parties. That was one. And the other was a legal action, a suit which concerned the massacre of Distomo. Christina Stamouli, who's going to speak after me, I think will have more to say about that, because this was initiated and successfully fought by her father, the late Yiannis Stamoulis. Now, I would like to say that what happened after 2000 was that the Semitic government and all other governments after the Semitic government refused to execute the decision of the Greek courts regarding Vistum. And this in itself is a big scandal because the Greek legal system requires that the government approve the execution of any decision which concerns a foreign country. This is quite unique to Greece, the existence of this law. But in any case, no Greek government ever since the year 2000, when this case was brought to completion, agreed to execute and to compensate the families of the victims of Vistum. Maybe Christina will have more to say about that, but I would like to say that partly as a result of our efforts, a committee was set up in the Greek parliament, which established a report which was unanimously, quasi-unanimously accepted by the parliament, all parties, which has resulted in a estimate of what Germany owes to Greece. This is a lower bound estimate. It severely underestimates the Greek, the forced loan, but in any case, it comes up with a figure which is just under 300 billion euros. Now, I'm not going to go into the numbers because these can be contested, but we are talking about a very important sum, which some estimate to be close to €1 trillion. But this is not the main issue. The main issue is that Greece is not forcefully claiming these debts. It's going through the motions of not verbal and making statements. But even in 2015, when the Syriza government was brought to power, the prime minister and the government quickly backed down when facing Germany's refusal to discuss the matter. And this, to me, is the crucial question. As long as Greece is not a sovereign state, and it has not been a sovereign state for many decades now, and especially since 2010 with the imposition of the memoranda and the situation of the surveillance for the repayment of the external debt, it's in no position to forcefully claim these war debts. Now, on the other hand, if it never claims these war debts, it will never become a sovereign state. So it's a catch-22 situation. It's a Gordian knot that has to be cut. And obviously, the Greek political system has so far failed in that respect. So it's a question that should be picked up by the Greek people. And we are at a crossroads at this point. In the past, the National Council, which I participate, has played a role as a lobby to inform public opinion and to try and influence the political system to claim these war debts. And it has been up to a certain extent successful, for example, in bringing about this parliamentary report, which was unanimously accepted in 2019. But beyond that, it has failed to force the government and the political system, the opposition as well, to claim these war debts. So we are at a crossroads, and I personally am, I favor the reorientation of the Greek National Council for claiming the war debts, in a direction of directly appealing to the Greek people to pick up this matter, which is seemingly too big for the political system to come to grips with. So we are going to have a Congress towards the end of the year or the beginning of next year, and this will be a hot item which will be decided on which line, which strategy the National Council will pursue. I don't want to say more at this point. I think this is a crucial matter. It's a question of respecting and being aware of the history of Greece, and also the debt that we Greeks owe to future generations. Germany's debt to Greece is one thing, but the debt of the Greek people towards Greek nation and future generations is another equally important. Thank you, Lou. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Yiannis. And it's also a debt, obviously, to those who preceded us, okay, who suffered all these terrible things. In terms of the various Hellenic governments, one thing that has shocked me, I got to be honest with you, because we've done a lot of events relating to the Hellenic genocide or the Christian genocide during the late Ottoman period. And one thing that shocks is how many decades it took for the Hellenic government to recognize the genocide of their own people. Okay, so these are like shocking things to those of us who, let's say, are in the diaspora, and you and others are to be commended for continuing to pursue these reparations, which are due to the nation. Only two nations suffered during the period of capital controls. And the interesting thing is that they were both Hellenic oriented, which is kind of a shock. You know, there were other nations, of course, who had financial difficulties, etc. But it was only Cyprus and only Greece that were imposed certain things that should not be imposed on any people, and that quite frankly, the Hellenic Republic is suffering still to this day. I'd like to present our next panelist. Christina Stamouli is a lawyer and an accredited mediator in civil and commercial law, registered with the Greek Ministry of Justice. She is trained and accredited as a mediator, and she has worked with the European Parliament as an MEP assistant. And since 1996, she has been working in Athens at the law office of Stamouli and Associates, providing consulting services in taxation and customs clearance, as well as in the violation of human rights. She has been monitoring the case, claiming reparations or compensations for the massacre of Distomos from 1995 until today. She frequently writes articles in Greek newspapers, magazines, and websites with the aim of better informing our Hellenic citizens about the complex legal, economic, political, and historical issue of Greece's claim, and of the publicizing the relevant knowledge of those claims. In 2017, she founded the nonprofit organization Yiannis Stamoulis Archives, with the aim of continuously monitoring and supporting the Distoma case and the issue of war reparations and historical memory. From 2011 to 2016, she was a member of the coordinating committee of the National Council for Claiming Germany's Debts to Greece. Welcome, Christina, and thank you for being with us today.
I thank you, Katsos at EMBCA. Good afternoon to everybody, the other panelists and people who is with us. I'd like today to talk about a very serious matter regarding history and justice, and to ponder over a question: why the people who were brave enough to chase justice and compensation for the slaughters and damages of the Second World War haven't been righteously compensated yet, despite their long efforts. A case which fits the mold of this question perfectly is the Distoma case, and I will take part of the time to present to you this effort. In a second part, I would like to introduce you into the big frame of the Greek claims and why this wound remains open. It was winter of 1995 when three German speaking elderly men visited the village of Distoma as pilgrims to plead for forgiveness in this place of massacre. These sorts of visits are quite common phenomena in Greece, even nowadays. During the Second World War, the assaults of German troops against non-combatant population were frequent and very brutal, as you already know. Approaching the end of their life, many of the German war veterans, who, voluntary or not, killed innocent people, felt the weight of their conscience becoming very heavy, probably on their shoulders. Over 100 massacres, as Yiannis already told, provoked by Germans have been registered in the Greek territory. Going back to 1995, the serious matter of war compensation claims had entered, from the legal and political point of view, in Greece and in an international level, in a critical phase. Following the conclusion of Moscow Treaty in September 1990, which was theoretically accepted as being equivalent to a peace treaty, and the unification of Western and Eastern Germany, Athens served a diplomatic notice to Bonn on the 14th of November of 1995, stating that Greek state maintains and stands forward for its rights relating to the payment of German war compensation and rehabilitations. Less than 15 days later, the 27th of November of 1995, 258 relatives of the victims of the massacre perpetrated in Distoma in 10 June 1944, represented by the governor of Viotia, Yiannis Stamoulis, brought an action for damages against Germany before the local court of first instance, the court of first instance of Levadia. Please allow me to dedicate today in his memory the presentation of his idea and his battle for over a decade, from 1995 to 2007 against Germany, as 17 years have already passed since his death. By this action, the plaintiffs asked the court to recognize the obligation of the German state to pay different amounts as reparation and pecuniary satisfaction for the loss and moral damage suffered by them from the malfeasances of the Nazi troops during the occupation, in violation of the effective, at that time, domestic law and the provisions about respect of life and property according to principles of international law known since the beginning of the 20th century according to the conventions of The Hague. The main argument of Germany, contra-argument of Germany, was that foreign courts, the Greek courts, are not competent and have not a jurisdiction to adjudicate the case. Courts rejected the German argument, and an amount of approximately 25 million euros in drachmas at this time was awarded in favor of the applicants. Since the year 2000, the small village of Distomo has been fighting to convince Germany that their apology must be meaningful, that apologizing without paying adherent to the court order is an apology without substance. This effort consists of many proceedings of recovery. With the first executory copy of the court decision of Levadia and claim for payment, Governor Stamoulis brought proceedings in Greece, first of all, to recover the debt. Despite the service of the judgment and the order to pay, the German state refuses. Then on July 2000, Stamoulis seized properties belonging to the German state located in Athens, as the Athens Goethe Institute, as well as building of the German School of Archaeology and a plot in Thessaloniki. But in Greece, domestic law requires the permission of the Minister of Justice for enforcing the decision against a foreign state. This is the reason why, following the seizure, the German state filed an objection with the Athens Court of First Instance, requesting annulment of the executor ruling issued against it. The First Instance Court dismissed the objection on the grounds that domestic law was incompatible, especially with the International Convention of Civil and Political Rights and the European Convention of Human Rights. However, some years later, the Court of Cassation decides that the intended limitation is acceptable and the seizure has been annulled. Later, at this time, began for the plaintiffs of Distomo the, let's call it, judicial tourism, as we decide to explore other countries' legal systems in search of a favorable ruling. On April 2005, a request was filed in front of the Tribunal de Première Instance de Bruxelles, trying to recognize the Levadia's ruling exequatur, but the Brussels court found that it could not give enforceable recognition to this judgment of Levadia's courts. At this point in time, the news from Italy were far better, and for that reason, the assertion in Belgium froze. Because Italian domestic law does not require the permission of the Ministry of Justice for enforcing a decision against the foreign state, Italy had been chosen for this execution since 2004. And with unchanged jurisprudence, the Italian courts of law decided back in 2004 and have been supporting ever since that the victims are fully entitled to a fair trial, as well as to access to a proper court and full compensation. I want to avoid boring you with the long law-related procedures that have taken place since then. But what you should know is that in Italy alone, there have been over 50 court decisions which have been ordered before the acceptance of the exequatur as well as after. I'll simply say that as we speak, the Distomians have a court order which they cannot use because Germany refuses to pay. Let's talk about the big frame now, the big image. It is reasonable to wonder that the position of the Greek state, what the position of the Greek state has been during all these years. Sorry if I'm shocking you, but I strongly believe that in contrast to the federal Republic of Germany, Greece has not and still has not, had not and still has not a national strategy on this issue. What could be this national strategy that we are missing? It is not only the adoption of a doctrine on the part of the official state. It is the adoption of a doctrine going side by side and accompanied at the same time by the definition of a framework favorable to the pursuit of actions towards a goal. Actions that do not only emanate from the state, but involve civil society itself and a lot of citizens. Only then can we talk about a national strategy. Shall we make a comparison? It will be interesting, I assure you. The official German state has defined its proper doctrine. We don't owe you, we apologize only now, because once they didn't even apologize, and that's it. But what kind of action is this doctrine supported? Many published papers, a lot of think tanks and conferences, constant presence into the universities. On the other hand, in our country, at least as long as I have been following this issue, the doctrine of weakness has been adopted in combination with a doctrine of idleness. A shining exception in the preparation of such a strategy on the two aforementioned axes, which was formulated in 1995 and implemented in two successive moves. First, the NOTAM of the 14th November of 1995, in which, as we said, the then Greek government set out all of Greece's reparations claims against Germany without omitting the occupation loan. And second, the filing 15 days later at the Court of First Instance of Livadia of the first lawsuit of the victims of Distomo. Unfortunately, between these two important events, on 20 November 1995, Andreas Papandreou withdrew from the political science for health reasons. From then until now, those of us who have been following the issue have not felt that we are walking into the safety of a national strategy as we defined it above, doctrine plus action. To be absolutely accurate, some important political acts have been carried out by individual leaders of the Greek state. In 2010, the impunity of war criminals is abolished. The 1959 legislation which suspended the prosecution of war criminals is repealed, precisely because this abolition was not part of a broader national strategy. It has remained a dead letter to this day. In the same year, Greece intervenes at the International Court of Justice in The Hague to support the Distomos fight in Italy. It's an important move that is very supportive for the Distomians, and that's at that stage of the case. In 2014, as Yiannis Mavros mentioned, a multi-partisan committee is created in the Greek parliament to study the issue, and in 2019, its report is voted. An important initiative that has been left incomplete as this report has not been translated yet, at least as far as I know. We hear from time to time members of Greek governments stating that the issue is not closed and that Greece is claiming. Claiming? Are we? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christina. in terms of the Greek government, I don't know what they're claiming about a lot of things, but I like your doctrine of weakness. I'm going to remember that, because that's not the only issue. There's so many doctrines of weakness, quite frankly, that are not being pursued. With that, I'd like to introduce our next panelist, Dr. Peter Stavrianidis. He's a successful entrepreneur and has served in numerous leadership positions within organizations connected with Hellenic issues of the diaspora and the genocide of Asia Minor. This includes being a past president of the Pan-Pontian Federation of US and Canada, and he is currently the president of the Federation of Hellenic Societies in New Jersey. He has done extensive research on the evolution of Greek America, modern Greek history, the Asia Minor genocide. Peter occasionally teaches as an adjunct professor, including at the Fashion Institute of Technology. Dr. Stavrianidis is also a research associate with the Pantheon University of Athens School of Social and Political Science, and he has been conducting an academic study on the history of Greek Jews with emphasis on the current situation and challenges that they face. Welcome, Peter, and thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure. Lou, thank you for this opportunity, and also thank you, the panelists, the esteemed panelists. So my intention today is to try to evaluate Greece's contribution to this conflict, global conflict, and the exploitation of its allies, especially the British, as far as the sacrifices that they had to suffer. There's no doubt that it was an epic battle that was fought by the Greek people, and it is, there's no doubt, it is one of the brightest pages in modern Greek history. A plethora of narratives were written during the period extolling the bravery and fortitude of the Greek people, as a new image of Greeks began to emerge across the world, especially here in the United States, which started to see the Greek American community in a new light. And it rose to a new stature, and Greek Americans were treated with respect and admiration. Now, the circumstances that led Greece into this uphill battle, especially with the subsequent invasion by the Germans and their pro-German satellites in the Balkans, varied. But the consensus is that as a nation, Greece remained faithful and completely aligned with Great Britain at a time when it also had other options available. Did Greece, being on the side of the victors, receive the credit or the rewards she deserved? I certainly do not think so, and this is my thesis today, especially after all the sacrifices and the suffering she had to encounter. I'm going to be selective in the rest of my notes because I don't want to be repetitive, but I want to touch upon some of the major incidents that occurred during this conflict. Now, it's very rare to see a nation, when war is declared, to celebrate. I mean, the Greek army and the Greek people respond to the news of the declaration of war with enthusiasm, patriotism, and celebration. The Greek army is very inferior in numbers and equipment, but superior in spirit and morale. So wins battle after battle and forces the Italian army to retreat. Now, after this we see clearly that it is inevitable that the German war machine will intervene. Just a matter of time. Metaxas is not a fool. And without a doubt, he's a well-trained and experienced military officer. He studied military training in Germany, and he's well aware that the already war-fatigued and ill-equipped Greek army is no match to the superiority of the invincible, until then, German army. Now, the British put tremendous pressure on him to continue even after when the Germans intervene. He asks for 200,000 well-trained and well-equipped British forces with tanks and the support of sufficient air force. Let's not forget that until that time, the Greek army had no tanks, very light artillery, and basically some old planes, leftovers from World War I. It was literally a suicide. So the Brits did not give in. And what do? They send 60,000 ill-equipped and not so well-trained Australians and New Zealanders. Metaxas is adamant about his position. So Metaxas dies on January 29th, 1949, from cancer of the throat, but under mysterious conditions. Maybe we can discuss later that this is not a conspiracy theory, but serious strategic decision that prompted such an initiative. He's replaced immediately by Alexandros Korizis, who is appointed by King George II. In the meantime, the Nazi forces attacked Greece on April 6, 1941. Prime Minister Alexandros Korizis commits suicide on April 18, 1941, after an intense argument that he had in the Hotel Grand Britann with King George II. He was found a little later in his home with 2 shots in his heart, which is really kind of strange. And also, this is something that can be discussed further. Now, my friend Nick, Professor Alexiou, mentioned about the Battle of Crete. And of course, Crete was a very important location for the Germans. I happened to be in Crete in the summer, and I was in the region of Chania at a very picturesque location called Paleochora. I'm always interviewing people, and as a sociologist, I interviewed a couple of intellectuals from that region. And I was kind of surprised. I don't know if you people knew, but I didn't know that before the war, the government confiscated guns and rifles from the Cretan people. And we all know that every Cretan house has a couple of those. And as I was preparing for this panel, I went across an interview where the late Konstantinos Mitsotakis speaks about that era. And during the interview, Mike Wandery receives an answer. He's talking that in 1930s, especially 1938, a movement is being initiated by Aristomenes Mitsotakis, who is Eleftherios Venizelos' nephew, in Crete, called Φιλική Εταιρεία. And the purpose of the movement was to eventually, first of all, to inspire other regions across Greece to join them with the intention to overthrow the dictatorship of Metaxas. And that prompted the government, and of course, Metaxas found out about this, so he sent forces there, and the government forces confiscated all the guns and rifles from every Cretan home, except the ones that they managed to bury and which they used when the Germans landed and they had to fight against the Germans with obsolete rifles and farming equipment. And that's something that I didn't know, and I give the Cretan people tremendous credit for their bravery and their patriotism. I would like to finish my presentation with a dedication to the Greek Jewish community. And I'm going to try to briefly touch upon their heroic participation in World War II. Now, the start of the Second World War found the overwhelming majority of the Jewish community based in Thessaloniki, with a population of about 50,000, along with another 25,000, mostly spread across cities throughout Macedonia, Corfu, Zakynthos, Ioannina, Volos, Athens, Crete, Rhodes, and other parts. So the Sephardic Jews of Thessaloniki were less integrated into Greek culture than the Romaniote Jews, who were completely integrated and harmoniously coexisted with their fellow Orthodox Christian citizens. Nonetheless, this did not mean that there were not occasional incidents of anti-Semitism, mostly originating from unofficial religious sources and biased viewpoints. Despite its presence in the historic city of Thessaloniki for nearly 5 centuries, it wasn't until 1913, following the accession of the new lands into the Greek state, that the local Jewish community first enjoyed complete equality under the Constitution and all the rights that went along with it. It should be noted that according to the Treaty of Lausanne, the only officially recognized minority existing at the time was the Muslim minority in Western Thrace, which remains status quo until today. Thanks to the new privileges enjoyed by the Jewish community of Thessaloniki, the Greek government began to pursue a policy of inclusion and ethnic integration regarding the Jews of Greece. This meant the provision of Greek language instruction and basic education at Greek schools. Furthermore, all Greek citizens belonging to the Jewish faith were compelled to open their shops on Saturday, in contrast to the custom up until then, which was aligned to their religiously observed day of rest. Although the new measures were initially met unenthusiastically by the leadership of the Jewish community, especially in Thessaloniki, where the Jewish element was in a prominent position, both financially and population-wise, in time, they faithfully comply with the law of the Greek state as honorable and law-abiding citizens. With the military mobilization of 1940, Greek Jews joined the ranks of the Greek army like all the other fellow Greek citizens and stood out for their courage and patriotism. Among them, Colonel Mordechai Frizis of Chalkida holds a special place in Greece's pantheon of heroes. Although he was very traditional when it came to his Jewish faith, he did not hesitate to encourage his men on the front, crying out, "May God and the Theotokos protect you." Frizis had fought in the Asia Minor campaign, and he was actually captured by the Turkish army. Although he had the option of being freed, since the Jews of Smyrna had paid the Turks ransom in exchange for the liberation of all Greek Jews, Frizis refused to leave his men and remained in captivity until he was released following the end of the war. So in the Greco-Italian War of 1940, Frizis was the first senior field grade Greek officer to fall in battle as he led the charge riding on his white horse. It is estimated that in 1940, the Jewish community numbered approximately 77,000, of whom 12,898 served in the Greek military. Of these soldiers, 343 were officers. 513 of them died on the battlefield, while 3,743 were injured. The literature regarding the role of the Greek Jews during Greece's entry into World War II and subsequently in the national resistance is relatively extensive. And here is where I'm going to finish my presentation, and thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Peter, so much for that. As you know, we've talked about a lot of different things over the last few months, over the last few years, including the Treaty of Cervez, including the Treaty of Lausanne, which you mentioned in your presentation. And it really, when you think about it and you step back, you see how Hellas, Greece, has been shafted in every war they fought in, where they supported the Allies, whether it was World War I, and I don't want to get into those details, etc. How they didn't support them even at the end in the so-called Greco-Turkish War, of 1922. But I keep thinking about what Christina said, basically, which was the doctrine of weakness. Okay, that everybody used us. They wanted us in the various wars. They've created, to a certain degree, Hellas as a client state. Okay, so we can die, while they sit back, etc., and do their geopolitical magic. But it's really interesting how, when you think about all these things, it's not only World War II, but also the same thing as we stated before in other panel discussions in World War I. I would like to state that the Hellenic American community did in fact support Greece even during the occupation, in particular with an organization that was called the Greek War Relief, and how in many cases, and I remember my mother-in-law talking about it, where she was dressed as let's say a tsolya, and these little kids would go out and raise money, etc., for Greece, and also during the katochi, and the so-called famine that we talked about, how there was extensive use of foreign ships that quite frankly we made agreements with Turkey, as a matter of fact, to ship products into Greece, because Turkey at the time was obviously not a part of World War II. So there's a lot of interesting things that can be discussed, and I'd like to just open it up. A lot of people made their presentations, etc. And if there's any questions of any panelists, by the panelists themselves, let's open it up to a discussion. And it's an open discussion right now, so whoever wants to speak is fine with me. And those who are muted, unmute yourselves so we can have this discussion. Nico, any questions?
Some thoughts, some thoughts rather. Very interesting. Thank you very much for your presentations. Amazing presentations. I'm very glad that we have a decorated officer here. Very pleased for that. I would like to mention that many officers try to escape Greece, and in many cases with the threat of their lives in danger, because the collaborator government, Cholaglu and others, because they demise the significance of the resistance, they were in fear, and they went to continue fighting in the Middle East, in Egypt, in Cairo, other parts of the world. So you see that a huge number of officers who participated in the resistance, they didn't like how the collaborative governments treated the resistance, and this is one of the things. The demise of the importance of the resistance, from Cholaglu to Yiannis, who created the battalion squads, right? As far as concerning the reparations, I think this is a continuation of the policy that we had with the early governments, with the occupation Greek governments, and afterwards. Not to ask. From my understanding from today's panel is to reassure me that the Germans never left Greece. Not only the hundreds of Holocaust and executions, but also economically. The Germans had a financial presence before the war and a lot more after the war. As far as concerns the Semitic government and all the other governments, don't forget the tremendous scandal with Siemens and how they managed to help escape this tremendous person, Christoforakos, the Siemens representative in Greece. I checked recently the economic activity of Germans in Greece. We import more than we export to them. Then it was a financial, the balance is extremely against Greece. So unfortunately, the Germans never left Greece.
Well, not only that, Nico, but all the major corporations that were supporting the Nazi war effort.
Yeah,
I don't see how they suffered, quite frankly. During the aftermath of World War II, they still continued. They still expanded their services, etc.
So our claims are directly related to politics and to ideology. So this is what I want to say. Peter, also, I would like to, regarding the Greek Jews, I would like to mention that the Christian Greeks play a significant role to save a lot of Greeks. So we have to put some credit to the Greek population that helped the Jews a lot. And as far as concerned the enthusiasm that the Greek people had about the claim of the war, it is because, according to bibliography and recent narratives and documentation, one main reason why they were so eager to go to war, it was not only to respond to the external Nazism, but also to the internal Nazism that Metaxas dictatorship represented. So it was a dual fight, both exterior and interior enemy. So a lot of this enthusiasm is the opportunity to get rid of the brutal Metaxas dictatorship. People imprisoned, executed, displaced, etc.
Nico, there's no doubt that Metaxas may be an issue with some people. You know, in many cases, he's regarded as a hero. Okay, we're not going to get into that right now, but I will say that in general, the Hellenic people have never cared for the occupation of their nation by other people, and this goes back for hundreds of years, even before the Ottomans, controlled Greece for many years. There was revolution after revolution after revolution to get rid of the Ottomans, for example, within mainland Greece. So I don't think it's an unusual thing for the Hellenic people to basically want no occupiers of their particular nation. And I think a lot has to be said for the heroism in terms of their going out to war to avoid anyone taking over their country. But in this particular case, as has been mentioned, their country was taken over. People did go into the mountains, and as we know, this is part of Hellenic history, by the way. People in the mountains, people fighting for liberation was a constant battle. And all these people who fought, and I agree with you, Nico, in certain regards, and also Peter, who mentioned that we have to have a discussion. We have to have a discussion on the civil war of Greece, okay? Because it's an important discussion that nobody wants to talk about, but I think we have to have this discussion. With saying that, Vice Admiral, any thoughts in terms of what you've heard today?
Many thoughts. Thank
Yes.
you very much. Thank you very much. I hold two messages: doctrine of weakness that Mrs. Stamouli has mentioned, and also that Germans have never left Greece. So I totally agree with both. First of all, we are seeing this doctrine of weakness in all the foreign policy of Greece in different times after the Second World War. Among them was the Cyprus issue in 1959-1960. The Germans that have not left Greece, I will share with you my experience in 2016, that I was the J5 strategy and policy in the National Defense General Staff. So a morning we received an order to start discussing with Turkey to deal with the issue of stopping the illegal migration from Asia Minor to the Greek islands. And who was let's say, the mediator between Greece and Turkey for this agreement to start working as a nation, as NATO in the Aegean Sea for the first time? Germany. So there is a German admiral who controls the whole operation in the Aegean Sea and is trying, to balance in between Greece and Turkey, mediator, facilitator. So I will share with you a personal experience. I was in the EU Military Committee. It was June of 2021. And we had a discussion in the Military Committee for the Libya issue. And by coincidence, the afternoon of the same day was the second Berlin conference taking place under the auspices of the German Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And for a second time, Greece was not in the round table to participate, although it is Greece is the closest European state having borders with Libya, only 148 nautical miles from Crete. So we should be there. We were not there. And allow me to mention the states that they were participating in the Berlin conference: Algeria, China, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Egypt, France, Germany, Italy, Libya, the Netherlands, Russia, Switzerland, Tunisia, Turkey, of course, the United Arab Emirates, UK, USA, UN, the League of Arab States, the African Union, and the European Union. And Greece was not in the round table because it was the decision of the foreign German policy not to participate, not to hamper at all the Turkish inspirations for Libya. So I raised my hand and I object on that, saying to the chairman of the military committee that the day before, the minister of Greece had a close contact with the president of Egypt, Al-Sisi, and the voice of Greece is going to be heard in the round table from a friendly country, the president of a friendly country, which was Egypt. And then I reminded to the committee, to my fellows, that Greece has fought in Libya during the Second World War, in Tobruk fight, and of course in El Alamein fight. And I said, if I remember well, we were by the winning side. So my German counterpart didn't talk to me for at least a month. He was so, let's say, he got so angry about my statements. And that shows that we are always from a weak side. The Germans are still in Greece, and we have not been rewarded from the sacrifices we suffered for 10 years, being always by the side of the Allies. Thank you very much.
Oh, the same thing goes back even before the Second World War. It goes to the First World War. For example, Germans were actually after World War I, where they lost, they were actually supporting Turkey in the so-called Greco-Turkish war. Yeah. We were promised, for example, I hate to bring these things up, but we were promised, for example, Venizelos was promised Cyprus. He was promised Cyprus in World War I if Greece went into World War I to support the Allies. We are continually being shafted area by area across the board. And I love this concept, Christina, the doctrine of weakness. I love that particular thing. And in terms of Germans never leaving Greece, I mean, the other thing we have to say, and we don't want to get this to be a political conversation because we don't want to discuss, politics one way or the other. But there's no doubt that the leadership of the nation has supported the other nations and not its own nation. Okay, giving the Hellenic people in the Hellenic state the voice that they deserve internationally. Okay, we are always there, as I said, becoming a client state where we are being used by others and actually through this doctrine of weakness, not doing what we have to do to support ourselves and to support our people. We are in the front line of almost every war. Okay, and we have not been compensated for any of that by anyone, and we're continually being mistreated. Christina, you were going to say something. I see you put on your headphones.
Yes, yes, indeed. I would like, first of all, thank you. But concerning this expression, doctrine of weakness, you said, everybody said that is special and maybe prototype. I would like to ask you to don't forget that I talk about, I talk also about the doctrine of inactivity, and I would like to keep in mind both of them, because weakness, if we talk about weakness, means that somebody else is responsible. If we talk about inactivity, we mean that maybe we are losing and we are not doing what we have to do. For example, there is a lot of tools internationally, and Greece is not using those tools. The relations with Greek Americans in between. Last week, I participated in a conference in Paris organized by the council, how we call this in English, Ελεγκτικό Συνέδριο, Cour des Comptes, talking about all the ancient and civil Γιάννη βοήθησέ με.
Πες τα στα ελληνικά.
Όλους τους πολιτιστικούς θησαυρούς stolen from Greece and from all over the Europe. And I realized that there is a big organization of all European countries asking about those things to be back to the countries, and Greece is absent. We never heard about that. And there is the Netherlands, France, Switzerland, the Benelux. Everybody is inside, and Greece is absent. That's why I think that all those we have to find all those tools, organize how to act about that.
Listen, the doctrine, I like that also, the doctrine of inactivity, but also in many cases, the Hellenic government doesn't even want the diaspora. I got to be honest with you. We've had also panel discussions regarding citizenship. Okay, people who are trying to get their citizenship, Greek citizenship, who happen to be Hellenic people, guaranteed by the Constitution of Hellas, and many cases inactivity. Let's talk about the orphans of the war. Okay, the orphans of the war, which we haven't discussed, where there's 4,000 orphans that were sent out, and many of them, by the way, not even orphans. Okay, they were taken when they were small children during the aftermath of World War II and also the Civil War. They were sent over to the United States and other countries. And these, for example, orphans are now trying to get their Greek citizenship because they were born in Greece. And the Greek government, okay, recently they said that the prime minister is looking into it and is going to support the orphans. But in reality, they have done nothing. I was born in Greece. It took me 10 years to get back my Greek citizenship, okay? And it took my son, after I got my Greek citizenship, 6 years to get his Greek citizenship. There are people who are ready and willing and able to be active, okay, because we believe in being active. On the diaspora, you have support for bringing back the marbles. You have support for some of these issues. We haven't connected yet on the issues that you mentioned, but we should connect, by the way. Connect on the reparations. There are many things that we can do, but the climate, the political climate, and again, I don't want to get into politics. I don't want to discuss that only a few families have controlled Greece for decades and generations, but something has to take place within Greece. Any word on that? Yes, please, Yiannis.
I agree with you. I mentioned that in my opening statement. I would like to pick up where Christina left the question of the repatriation of the cultural treasures that were looted. This is the most scandalous aspect of the shortcoming of the Greek state, the Greek authorities. And I think it's partly explained by how corrupt they are. We have to face the fact that we are a failed state. We have failed our people. We have failed our heritage, our name. We have failed the diaspora, Hellenism, and we have to reinvent and refound the Greek state. And the battle to get the authorities in Germany to accept and come to terms with the fact that they owe us is part of this, and it will be a catalyst in this battle. And I want to quote the Prime Minister of France, Clemenceau, who was the hero of World War I, who is mentioned in the introduction to the economic consequences of the peace by John Maynard Keynes, the economist. Keynes mentioned that Clemenceau said, you don't negotiate with Germany. You impose terms on Germany. Because if you don't impose terms on Germany, Germany will impose terms on you. And I would like to submit a personal story that I had just when Samaras leadership of Nea Demokratia was elected, where I tried to convince the leadership of Nea Demokratia that they should change the tune of this doctrine of weakness, which can also be described as the apsoriostasi, the impeccable stance that Greece has had, and that's a euphemism, of course, because it's it's a stance which stems from the perceived weakness that we have. But the question was that this claim that we had from Germany should have been brought into the center stage right away in 2010, when we were heading towards the imposition of the memoranda. If we had done that back then, we would have avoided being submitted to the memorandum and the whole imposition of terms on Greece, which were which amounted to a new form of occupation, which in effect sealed the loss of any kind of sovereignty that Greece had, which has led to the scandalous absence of Greece from all international fora and its complete failure to represent the interests of the Greek people and to be effective in defending the most obvious rights that we have. Now, I would like to say that we have to reinvent the Greek state. The authorities and the Greek state has failed us. And how we do this is very difficult, because it's not just a party or a government or two, but it's the entire political system which has failed us. And so we have to start from scratch. And this is the reason that we are at a loss doing so. And on the other hand, though, the fact that the political system is so sold out, has failed us so deeply and continuously. And this dates back to the Civil War, of course. And I will refer to the Porter report. Back then, Porter was the head of the Greek War Relief, and he made a report where he expressed his amazement at how servile and unpatriotic the Greek elite was even back then. Well, this has continued in various ways up until the present time. And there were some exceptions, but they were brief, and it was one big exception was 1964, the election of the Center Union government. And back then, for the first time, Germany, through its Chancellor Erhard, recognized the debt that Germany owed Greece. But this was very short-lived because, as you all know, the Central Union government was undermined and was overthrown, and we were led into the dictatorship, and that sealed our fate ever since. And even after the overthrow, the collapse of the dictatorship, no moves were made, and even the moves that were made in 1995, as was mentioned, with the diplomatic note that was served, or in 2015, again, a new diplomatic note was served after the report that was mentioned. These were just they lacked substance. They were moves that were made for tactical or communicative reasons, that they lacked substance. They lacked the backing of a political will. And the reason, in my mind, is that the agents, the government that put them forth, was not serving the interests of the Greek people. They were an elite that was divorced spiritually and politically from the society. They were an elite which was deeply corrupt and in effect forfeited its purpose and its role.
I think we have to start a doctrine of activity. I think we have to start a doctrine of activity. I know it's very late. Yeah.
If I would like to add one more concern to that, and both Ms. Stamouli and Mr. Mavros can help me if I understand correctly. Reading again Germany's narrative about the reparations. And this is a lot of concern to me because in the 21st century, we see again the specter of neo-fascism all over Europe. Austria the other day, right? Holland, everyone. But recent narrative by Germany is that I'm sorry, but this is how war is. So whatever happened in this or in all other places, this is how war is. So this is a very fascist attitude, and this is a lot of concern to me.
Yeah, Nico, before we do that, it's getting very late in Athens right now. So what I want to do is just start to wrap it up. And I'd like to start with each panelist and just have some closing statements. And to the question that Nico asked, if when I call upon you, Yiannis and Christina, if you can respond to it, it would be great. Nico, some final thoughts on today's event, and anything you have to say about it.
Yeah. I always believe that the study of the past helps to understand the present and therefore to plan or to design our future. So we need to understand better the occupation, the resistance, and as we said before here, how to reimagine or how to reinvent our collective actions. The tremendous, one tremendous lesson we learned from the events of the 1940s is that the only way to move forward is not extreme individualism, but through the collective, the polis, the demos, as they say. So I think this is also the eternal message of our ancestors. Oedipus Rex, right? What kills the terrifying things, right? Human beings. So we need to design a society, an economy, a place that the real needs of human beings are in the center, human rights.
And Nico, what I got out of the conversation is also that we have to link up on some of these issues that we've been discussing today with the diaspora. In other words, the diaspora is not as aware as some of the things that the panelists were talking about, that we have to also get involved with them to help them in the diaspora. And I think going forward, we have to link up on those two particular things relating to those reparations. Vice Admiral Pavlopoulos, some thoughts, final thoughts today.
No, I'm okay. Thank you very much. It was a very interesting discussion. I learned a lot from subject matter experts. What I think, I strongly believe that Greece has to be competitive in the international community and stand up front and demand what Greece deserves. We are in a geostrategical position which is of extremely importance for the international balance of power, and we have to profit of that and be very, very cautious about having open discussions with Turkey on international issues. We established the sovereignty in the Aegean Sea in 1913 after the naval battles of Eli and Limnos, and the result of that was the connection of the island of Crete with Piraeus on a daily basis, and controlling Crete, you control the Aegean Sea and the outskirts of the Mediterranean, the Eastern Mediterranean Sea. So we have to be, let's say, competitive also during discussions. We have rights, and we don't have to give them on a negotiation table for nothing. We earned all those national rights that we have, we deserve through combats, not in round tables. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Yiannis, Mavros?
Well, I'd like to thank you, and I would like to reiterate the idea that it's only if we unite in struggle as a people, not just in the Greek state, but in the diaspora as well, and organize ourselves and stipulate a national strategy, which is sorely lacking. It used to be in the past that Europe would, our integration in Europe would solve matters. Obviously, this has failed. And on the contrary, it has subjugated Greece to Germany. And Greece has to be liberated once again. And this is up to the Greek people to do, and to do against the political system, which only serves to perpetuate and to reproduce this subjugation to foreign authorities, in this case, not just Germany, but the European Union. And it's interesting that the alliance between Germany and the US, which existed in the past, has been questioned, has been put into question by recent events in Europe. And perhaps this is a golden opportunity to convince the authorities in the US to help Greece in our claim against Germany. I think it's a good moment in history where this might prove effective, as long as we are or attempt to become a sovereign state. And we will become a sovereign state if we start to claim what is due to us. If we
Thank
don't, we will remain subjugated, and this is
in a client state. Thank you so much, Yiannis. Christina, some final thoughts?
On second thought, yes, I would like to add that this Tomo case was at this time, I mean, at 1995, part of a national strategy, because Andreas Papandreou was totally informed and
I think Christina is frozen. Christina, can you hear us?
yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay, if you can speak, your image is frozen, but please continue.
Yes, I was saying that Yiannis Stamoulis never said that never said that the matter is the money or what the dystomians will take as a compensation. It's a couple. I mean, it's the recognition of the action of the Nazis' action together with their compensation, because the international law wants to be recompensated those acts. So that's why I'm talking about national strategy, because all those personal and individual initiatives have to be supported by a general project, a general strategy.
Thank you, Christina.
Look, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Please. Yeah, go ahead, please.
You see this picture. When I bring my American students to study abroad in Greece, and we go to Delphi and Arachova, we always stop by Distomo, and it is the only place that the American students, they never take one picture because of respect. They cry, they are very humble, and it's the only place that those are Americans who take pictures every other second, and in Distomo, they cannot do that. And for me, that was a great thing.
Nico, thank you for bringing that up, Nico. Peter, some final thoughts, ideas?
I didn't have a chance to speak after my initial presentation, so allow me to express some thoughts. First of all, when we study history, and it's very well said that in order to know how to act at the present time and future, we have to study history, but also we have to study leadership. We have to study the people that played a role. And I'll give you an example. I'm not a fan of Metaxas, and actually I was in the anti-junta movement as a young student and participated in the democratic factions for many, many years. So I'm not a fan of, but I have to recognize that the leadership stance that he took when the British were putting pressure for Greece to continue on fighting, which was a total suicide after a glorious fight against the Italians. So he refused, and I think he did the right thing. But of course, he died under mysterious circumstances, and the same thing happened to Alexandros Korizis. These are the things that I have to study, to analyze, and give more emphasis on the leaders, on leadership. That's what can make a difference. In Greece, you and I go to Greece often, especially you, Lou, but I'm also working with Greek universities. They do not, and I'm saying that with sadness in my heart, they do not appreciate as much regarding the talent that exists in the diaspora. We have tried for many, many years, because we are not just philosophers. We are also doers. We want to get things done. it's a different element. It's a different philosophy in Greece. And as much as we love Greece, we do it from the bottom of our heart. If we lived in Greece, they would call us graphiki. That's the epithet that they use. But we do it because we don't have anything to gain. So leadership is something that we have to study, and we have to study all those people that played a role during these eras. We forgot to mention also the end of the Greek Revolution, the assassination of
Kapodistas.
That's right, Lou. The EMBCA dedicated a session a few weeks ago.
Well, we had two events on Kapodistas, including in Greece, by the way. And in Greece, they were shocked. They were shocked.
So we also have to assume responsibility. It's not only the Xeni, the big powers, the megales dynamis. It's also our leaders. We are a small country, meaning Greece, not the US. We are a small country, so it makes a huge difference who is going to manage this small country, who is a small ally, a small peon in the international chess game. So I think this is something. Also regarding, Nico mentioned about the contribution of the Greek people vis-a-vis the Jewish Holocaust in Greece. This is a pretty perplexed topic. And I can say I have done a lot of research and conducted tens of interviews. So that deserves a session, a panel discussion that we can't say that, there's a lot of bitterness from quite a few of Greek Jews that the Greek state did not do enough. We have to address that. And of course, there was a lot of good that was done. So finishing up, I think this was a very useful meeting with some esteemed contributors. And I'm looking forward to discuss it further, especially the meaning of the resistance.
Thank you, Peter. And I think that we have to have a discussion on everything leading up to the civil war in Greece. We have to have an honest discussion with both sides. It's something that still remains. When I go to Athens and I go into the taxi with the taxi drivers, depending on what side they're on, and there are communists there also, KKE types, and there's an interesting discussion. So we have to have this open discussion amongst ourselves as a people, quite frankly. And I will say that, in terms of what you stated about the Hellenic Americans and other Hellenic people in the diaspora, many of us just want to help the nation that either we were born in, or our parents were born in, or our grandparents were born in. And Elas has to, quite frankly, accept us a little bit more. I don't think it's the Hellenic people per se. I do think it's the elites, quite frankly, that may not want us within Greece and affecting its politics, because our thoughts are for the nation and for the people. We have no economic linkage that to support ourselves or what have you. We're okay economically. We just want to help the nation. With that, I'd like to,
Lou, before you finish, on a more positive note, in 1947, the Italians made a noble gesture and donated a ship to us, a cruiser. I have the picture here. I don't know if you can see it.
It's a little blurred, but we got it.
Yes, and they donated as a gesture of reparation, because they sank the ship Ellie on August 15th. So they gave us a cruiser, which is the same type of ship, and we took it and we renamed it Ellie. At least they gave us something, right?
Well, it's really interesting that you talk about the Ellie, because I actually have a print from that period of the Ellie actually in my house. So it's kind of interesting. I'd like to thank the panelists for a very interesting discussion that's going to obviously be continued. And to the audience, in early November, we're going to have another event. This time we're going to do a journey and reflections on Chios, the island of Chios. And not only on the island in terms of the way we know it, but also the influence of the diaspora from Chios and their effects not only within the Hellenic nation, but also within America itself and the American Civil War, which we'll discuss a little bit in detail. Thank you again for those who are with us in Athens. And I know it's a little bit late. Thank you for this great discussion. And again, we'll continue it. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye now. Hey, by the way, before we go, let me say this thing. When you're going to have your next discussions on reparations, etc., get us involved. Get Nikos Alexiou, Professor Alexiou involved, get me involved, etc., so we can have another panel discussion specifically on those particular issues. Thank you again.
Sure will.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Καληνύχτα, γεια σας.